Real Oviedo has come a long way since the financial struggles they faced a decade ago, now being owned by Grupo Pachuca and Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim. In this rebuild, we look to develop Mexican players and win some trophies along the way. Starting out this rebuild, we'll take a look at some of the key players we'll see throughout it. Alex Cardero, a young center mid showing great potential. Borja Baston will be key in these first few seasons as we try to get promoted and our initial seasons in La Liga. Borja Sanchez, another player initially on the squad who will be on it to the end of this rebuild. And Marcelo Flores, of course, made news joining the club on loan, the young Mexican wonder kid. We're going to make it a bit more interesting by signing him on a full transfer, 5 million euros. I think he would probably go for a bit more in real life, but I decided to I think it was a decent offer because that was actually kind of like our whole transfer budget for the first season. So be really focused on seeing how he develops. I like him as a left winger, cutting in on his right foot. It's a lot of what I've seen of him in real life is actually on that. A lot of good highlights of him cutting in and hitting a long shot and making things happen like that. Also a very good dribbler, so I think with how we're going to play, at least in the first few seasons, it makes some sense. You can see actually the Pachuca League being taken advantage of, one of our players being transferred out there, and some other guys on loan, such as Yayo, who's another player who actually has decent potential, and we'll see if he can reach it in this rebuild. But starting out here, you see Borja Baston at the striker spot, Flores, Sanchez, kind of the key players we'll be seeing throughout here, and of course Cardero, one of the midfielders. Now Manu Vasquez, as we scouted Mexico, trying to take advantage of that link with Pachuca now. Obviously with the Pachuca ownership group, a club that has historically exported some quality players to Europe, such as Hector Herrera and Irving Lozano. So we'll see if we can kind of keep that tradition going as we find Manu Vasquez, a left back, and we'll see what his status looks like. And then Cristobal Cabezas, who's actually listed as a right wing back, but you look at his shooting and dribbling, he certainly looks a lot more like a striker, and that is what we're training him into. So any people who have maybe started out playing, career mode, and a lot of good players you can find in the youth academy who just really need to have that position changed, and that seems to be the case with Cabezas. Halfway through the season, about 5 points away from the playoff spot there. Now Cabezas is a 60 overall as a striker, so that position change certainly was a very good idea, and we'll take a look to see what his status may be. But the statuses do change pretty quickly, especially if they're younger players out on loan. Exciting prospect as a striker, so pretty good level, and we'll certainly try to improve that, trying to send him out on loan. Now I can certainly end up with kind of 90 plus potential. It's a bit too OP personally, I think, but it happens. Vasquez also had pretty good potential, as I do think I glanced over the status for a second, but obviously with some loans out, he'll continue to improve. So in the end, just missed out on a playoff spot in this first season, 6 points away from the last spot there. Oh my god, my math is terrible. 5 points away, but technically, I mean, if you wanted to get over them in points, it'll be 6. But Borja Baston and Borja Sanchez, really the key players, plenty of goals there. Unfortunately, Marcelo Flores didn't have the best of season in his first season of first team football, playing at a level outside of the U23s in England. So he had 2 goals and 2 assists. Manu Vasquez did actually grow quite a bit on loan. Cristobal Cabezas will be going on loan to Nashville in MLS as we start the second season here. Now, Eric Sanchez Oseguera, another player who's coming from Club Pachuca, another guy we want to export and keep that link going. He's a quality player with some good passing ability, pretty agile, and I think he's a player who really actually would thrive in a league like the Spanish league. So I think he's at this level, I think he's actually what could be a player who thrives. And I'm actually going to bring a player who actually got started out with Pachuca from what I remember, and didn't actually get most of his playing time. He's kind of known for some of his recent appearances with the Mexican national team, then as well as Chivas, Leon. So he will be our veteran goalkeeping option. Pretty good overall rating, the highest rated player, and we expect him to help out quite a bit. So now this season, you see Eric Sanchez, Yayo, Cardero sitting in the midfield. So going with a very young midfield, but some more, I'd say, veteran leadership in the back line. If you did sell some players here, you can see Rama, 3 million euros. Obviously, Eric Sanchez was a pretty big offer. We had to put in for him almost 10 million euros, but it didn't pay off right away. It seems like actually halfway through the season, we're pretty much in the same spot as we were before, 6 points away from a playoff spot. So we're going to have a strong second half of the season if we don't want to stay in the La Liga 2 again. But now Julian Araujo, a player who has had some links to Europe, and And I think it's about that time where he needs to make that jump. 21 years old, right back for LA Galaxy. Mexican-American, obviously made some news for making that switch. He was actually really highly valued by Greg Berhalter in the U.S. men's national team, so it was considered a big loss at one point, but a huge second half of the season, just making the playoffs over goal differential. So getting that last playoff spot, now going into this first playoff leg. This is actually the last match of the season. It went down to the last match of the season. I completely screwed that up. But yeah, when everything went down to the last match of the season, and we just snuck into the playoff spot, into that last playoff spot, which is huge. Now going into Real Zaragoza here in the first leg, a 1-0 victory. You can see Araujo really slotting in well in that fullback spot. Vasquez as well. 2-1 victory we do go through. And we're going to be coming up against a real-life rival. It's an interesting rivalry now because of the history. It's the Asturian derby with Sporting Gijón, and actually both clubs now have Mexican owners, as Sporting Gijón is owned by the Mexican ownership group of Club Atlas and Santos Laguna, Mexico. So that's actually some bad blood recently between the two owners actually in real life have kind of made this thing more interesting, because a derby and as well as a rivalry between two owners who are from outside of Spain. So kind of a double rivalry now. It's going to mean even more for both owners and both groups of people. But now going on here, a quick little counterattack. Cardero is going to play a beautiful ball over the top. Yayo is going to win it, flick it down to Borja Baston, who's going to play Borja Sanchez through to the Borja connection, and he's going to finish that, put it in the back net to make things 1-0 in the 16th minute, and that is a huge goal as we try to push on here in this promotion playoff final. Oviedo has not been in La Liga for basically more than 2 decades now, so it would be a huge victory. But Cardero gets his shot blocked. A couple of beautiful deflections fall right to Borja Baston, and the experienced Spanish striker obviously spent some time in the Premier League and some clubs in England, came back to Spain, and his experience really helped out, as in the end we reach a 2-1 victory. Unfortunately, Alex Cardero ends up with an injury. He's going to miss the final, and we're going to bring on a veteran in Luis Mi, who has a beautiful helmet, to come in here for this second leg. But Borja Baston going to play the ball to the pacey Marcelo Flores. He is just too quick. No one can catch up to him, as he's going to force the goalkeeper to come out to force the sweat. And Baston's going to put in the back of the net. Very cool from Flores. Good composure to put that in the back of the net, as it seems like our hopes of getting promoted seem to be closer, until Gijón really comes up with a beautiful long shot. Not really long shot. Campuzano actually rode the Oviedo player on the back of him and ended up hitting into the back of the net in the side netting, and what was an interesting goal there. But now, moving on, a quick little counterattack. It looks like a possibility. Manu Vasquez is going to play the ball to Marcelo Flores. Way too much space afforded to him on the wing. He's a good dribbler. He's very agile, and it shows right here as he plays the ball across the Borja Baston to make things 2-1, a 4-2 aggregate lead, and it looks like this could be an easy one in the end, and getting some lovely bragging rights in this derby match, and that certainly is how things are going to go down. As you can see, the beautiful Luis Mi, he's with that helmet. You gotta love players with helmets in game, and that is how we win promotion to La Liga. And it's going to be interesting first season in La Liga, because we clearly don't have an amazing amount of quality. We have to hope other clubs are much worse than us, and that is what we're going to have to really hope for, because we're just not going to have an amazing amount of transfer budget, and we're going to have to probably just strengthen the defense, maybe play a pretty defensive formation, and see if that's maybe the way to lead us not only to staying up, but maybe some trophies. So you can Borja Baston with a big season, 26 goals, 3 assists, 16 goals, 9 assists from Borja Sanchez. And Marcelo Flores had a good season with 12 goals and 8 assists. And some other guys such as Alex Sanchez, 8 goals, 7 assists. So him making his move to Europe has certainly paid off, not only for the club, but for himself as well. But the has been to be special now is Manu Vasquez, after getting a lot of playing time, and Araujo growing as well. So some good improvements all around. Yayo, he grew quite a bit in the season, but unfortunately after he just seemed to stagnate a bit more in his growth. Cardero at the 71. Probably not really good enough for La Liga technically, but now Cristobal Cabezas up to the 73 is a player who we may have to promote over Borja Baston just for the future. But Johan Vasquez, an experienced player who did a really good season in Serie A, and he's going to be expected to do a lot here. As he'd go back to Pumas here in the save, and I said we might as well give him a permanent home now in La Liga. I think it's a league that really would fit him well. He's not, incredibly physical, but he's really good technically. He reads the game well. As we look for another signing here, Navarro, a Spanish goalkeeper, and he's a guy we want to bring in to just improve our defense. It seems like when you simulate more, that actually having a good goalkeeper really influences how you do in simulations a lot more than almost any other position, it seems like. But they'd spend quite a bit here. 26 million euros is what we spent in some players on loan. Yayo, Lasso, Cueto, some players who have some decent potential, but really aren't expected to feature an incredible amount possibly in the next few seasons unless they get some sort of loan glitch. But Marcelo Flores, Baston, Sanchez making up the wingers, and then we're going to go a 5-2-3. So Cordero would be in the midfield along with Sanchez or Segueda, and then left back Vasquez, right back Araujo, Johan Vasquez in the middle there with some of the other center backs we had from the start. But not an amazing start to the season, but thankfully some of the other sides struggled a bit more than us, as we're 15th, 18 points, 3 points away from the drop. So that is going to be interesting end to the season, as some other teams do have. We do have a game in hand, which could give us a bit more space, but we'll see how we do. As it did end up just staying in the same spot. 15th we ended up. Thankfully, some other clubs like Eibar or Vallecano were pretty poor, so that helped us be able to kind of comfortably stay up in the end. But also was nice because we were able to get some minutes to some key young players in the end, like Cabezas, Vasquez, Araujo. A lot of these both Vasquez, Johan, and Manu. Now moving over to some of these stats. Borja Baston had a great season, 16 goals there he had, and then Borja Sanchez with 9 assists, so a really good season for some of these guys. Not going to highlight the goals and assists in this one. It was really those two, the only ones who really did much. But Alejandro Frances, a young Spanish center back who was to Stoke City at the start of the save, it looked like, age 21. We're at to put in a decent offer for him. 21 million euros is what we put. And he has some good potential, and I think we just kind of want to make sure we don't make this, completely, all Mexican players, but it's okay if we have a good amount. So now Flores up to 75, Cristóbal Cabezas is going to be the starting striker, Vasquez, Costa, Frances as the center backs, and of course Manu Vasquez, Araujo are the left back, and it's going to be Cordero and Eric Sanchez or Segueda in the midfield. But actually a much better start to the season, as it looks like here we're now 10th. In last season we were 15th halfway through and ended up 15th. So that's a good campaign so far, and we'll see how we'll do in the second half. Unfortunately, we just keep on getting knocked out in the cup, so that's why you have not seen like any cup fixtures or anything actually showcased, because we keep getting knocked out in the first round. And in the end, 10th place finish, still 17 points pretty much away from a European spot, but very comfortable, comfortably from the drop, about 14 points there, it looks like. So a good season after what was a very tough first season. Obviously, some of the additions to the side I think really helped, and some of the improvement of those young players who've had plenty of room to grow. But now, moving on to the next season here, we will we're going to look at the stats first, forgot about the attributes, as Cabezas had an incredible season in his first one as a starter with 21 goals. Looks to be the next big Mexican striker. Obviously it's been a area that's been tough recently. Obviously Jimenez, ever since he got that head injury, just has not been the same. It looks like Chicharito obviously on the older side, and there hasn't been a 9 that has really stood out yet. There's some promising young players, but Cabezas is going to establish himself as the striker of the future for Mexico. But Cabezas with, again, 21 goals, good amount of assists, 12 and 3 from Marcelo Flores, 9 and 7 from Cordero. So a good season from some of those guys, as you can see the growth there is looking pretty solid as well. Alvaro up to 79, Manu Vasquez up to 86, has potentially special. Johan Vasquez up to 79. So a couple players really seem to showing out. Araujo unfortunately just seemed to kind of stop growing, but Borja Sanchez up to 79, Eric Sanchez up to 80. So a lot of players are improving, as we're going to look to improve that right back spot, as unfortunately Julian Araujo just kind of stopped growing, it seemed like. And we're going to bring in Juan Foyt, a very experienced defender, and he's going to help us with depth. I guess he can play right back, center back, probably some CDM. So he gives us a good option there. And as we look at Israel Reyes, another player who's going to give us some depth at the center back and midfield, as that's just really kind of the biggest need we have at the moment, I feel like. And we're actually going to throw in Araujo, the Mexican right back, into the transfer, and also 10 million euros. So a bit on the more expensive side maybe, but you just look at his attributes. He's good physically, mentally, and technically, and he's going to be starting as a center back, be hopping in the midfield also, as we'll see here. Flores, Cabeza, Sanchez, Cordero, then Eric Sanchez Osegueda, Manu Vasquez, Johan Vasquez, Israel Reyes, Francis, Foyt at the right back, and Alvaro in net. But at the moment, we are in 8th place, so a really good start to this third season in La Liga, and it's one that really looks like we can make some things happen here as we're getting some improvement from some of those key players. Obviously, Manu Vasquez, Marcelo Flores, Cristal Cabeza seem to be the future, and some of our other guys we've brought in and have been on the squad from the start, like Alex Caldero and Borja Sanchez, really are showing off. But in the end, a 4th place finish somehow after a disappointing season from both Atletico and Real Madrid. So the Madrid clubs did not do as well as us, and we hop in there and establish ourselves into a Champions League spot. We'll see how we fare in Champions League and what could be, it's obviously one of the biggest seasons this club has ever seen, but a big goal output from players like Sanchez, Cabezas. It's a really big season, again, assist-wise also for a lot of these guys, as we'll take a look at the kind of more individual attributes and the growth of some of these players. So you see Borja Sanchez with an incredible season, 16 goals, 4 assists, 15 from Cabezas, 13 goals, 9 assists, kind of a breakout season, I feel like, for Marcelo Flores. Cordero up to an 80 overall, 9 goals, 6 assists. Israel Reyes, you can see, growing actually to an 81. Brought a couple players actually on free transfers like Javier Manquillo as a backup right back. And our just depth is looking a lot better, as we're going to bring in a new goalkeeper, Andre Lunin, who actually played a season on loan at Real Oviedo, so he has some familiarity. They wanted us to throw in Johan Vasquez, but he had to throw in 46 million euros for who's still a very young goalkeeper, has experience in La Liga now, and is someone who could really make us improve and turn us into a top side. Help us turn into a top side, I feel like. And now we're going to bring in a former Pachuca player in Irving Lozano. You saw the thumbnail. It was meant to happen at one point. And, it's a decent fee, actually. I feel like it was a lot better than a lot of times you'd have to overpay a little bit. But 30 million euros is not too bad. Obviously, a player of his standing who's had some big moments in Mexican football. Obviously, you think of that goal against Germany in the World Cup is one so many Mexican fans will never forget here. So Marcus Sensai, another center back going to be bringing in, just improving that depth there, as obviously as you're playing a 3 center back formation and need more depth in the midfield. I think it's a good signing for us to bring him in. 30 million euros was actually really not too bad whatsoever. I guess United just kind of went for him, and I'm guessing he didn't play an incredible amount, and that's what maybe getting on a little bit of older end. But one of the better center backs we'll find here. But Flores at the 87, Cabeza at the 85, Lozano at the right wing now, Cordero and Sanchez still as the center mids, Manu Vasquez at the 89, and then Foyt at the 82. So all of our team is above the 80 now, and of course some players standing out really in the upper 80s is going to help. But now a tough group to have our first appearance in Champions League. Manchester City, Lille, Victoria. It's going to be probably us fighting with Lille for the second spots, as a huge first start to the first half of the season. 4th place we are in the table on 32 points. Atletico Madrid bouncing back along with Real after a tough season in the last campaign, where we actually finished above them in 4th and them in 5th and 6th respectively. I think maybe not having Champions League kind of helped them. In the end, in our Champions League group, we didn't do well enough in the head-to-head with Lille, and that's what keeps us out, from my understanding at least. We did lose the second leg considerably. So we're going to be dropping to the Europa League, but the Europa League is still a competition we would love to see us perform well in, as you'll see us making some changes here. And won the first leg of what's the round of 32 now, I think, against Lens, and a 2-0 victory against them as we look to continue on in the Europa League and maybe win a trophy there. But moving on here, actually had a cup run for once and a very lucky draw in the semifinals. Saw us against Granada, and this is one where we could actually possibly finally see us, make a cup final, or at least a decent cup run. because before we were just getting knocked out every time the first round. So, was it 6 seasons in, finally have a cup run going for us, and we win 5-3, which will put us into the final. Now we're going to play against Lazio here in the Europa League round of 16, and we end up going through 3-2 on aggregate after what was a pretty big victory. Now against Atalanta, obviously to hate the fact that they doesn't have the real names. First leg, we end up winning a decent 2-2. So it's going to be a very interesting second leg as we're now in the quarterfinals. And we'll see how the second leg goes now. Obviously, you have a pretty strong side, and we're focusing quite a bit on this competition. 4-2 victory will put us into the semifinals. And now we'll play that big cup final against Real Madrid, who's actually playing at the stadium of Atletico Madrid. So interesting here, playing at the Wanda Metropolitano. Oh my God. Okay, I'm not even going to try to say things sometimes. I just... Okay, but love the beautiful cinematics here of the stadium going down. It's beautiful cutscenes, and that's what I'm really excited to see being added in FIFA 23. Some of these cutscenes are already so good, and I think having additional ones who are a bit worked on a bit more revamped is nice. I really like some of the cutscenes we saw for signings and stuff like that. But as you see the Spanish Cup here, this is a huge match, a huge moment for most of these players. They have an incredible side, and that's always going to happen, it seems like. But you'll really see how our 5-2-3 works as we just kind of get numbers on the wing forward a little bit. Cardero is kind of bombing forward, now putting the ball to Cristobal Cabezas, who's going to have the opportunity to play it across to Irving Lozano, and that's probably one of the biggest goals he's scored since that famous one against Germany. And this is one he certainly will not forever forget, as the combination of Cristobal Cabezas and Lozano. Yeah, of course, we have a Mexican front three, which is really interesting also. But now Real Madrid is certainly not going to give up. Vinicius playing the ball across. And in the end, 35th minute is 1-1. Unfortunately, they got us on the counter, and that's where it's kind of tough for us is when they counterattack against our lack of numbers in the midfield. But Frances with a huge win, as Irving Lozano is going to play the ball into space to Cristobal Cabezas, and the young Mexican striker, no doubt, is going to put that in the back of the net to make things 2-1 in the 39th minute. So they kind of hit us on the counter once. We come back quickly, as you saw Frances playing kind of the right center back, stepping up nicely, winning the ball, playing forward, and making things happen. But again here, this is where we could see some trouble. But we do win the ball nicely. Cardero. The ball's going to be played back around to Sanchez, to Irving Lozano. Foyth is going to get the ball in the wing. He's going to put the ball to Cabeza, who's going to put in the back of the net. What a cross, what a finish from Cabeza to make things 3-1 in the 53rd minute. So it looks like that may be the one to wrap things up in what was a very exciting matchup. Of course, coming against the likes of Real Madrid, you generally do not expect to see something like this happen, but it's been a magical season here for Oviedo, and the celebration will start. So I have to say, this is looking like this is going to be the last season of the rebuild, and I could obviously continue it and maybe, but I would have to replace some of the original players in a way that I really don't want to, and that's why I kind of want to keep this probably as the last season, and depending on if we win a possible Europa League final, or get to the Europa League final, can maybe try to look for one more success in one more European competition, or see how we could do in La Liga. But lifting the trophy up, a huge win in the Spanish Cup. Obviously, kind of other storylines. You see Lunin against his original club, grabbing the victory, and this is a fun one, as we still have our eyes set on the Europa League semifinals after this match. So something they have to put behind them, celebrate these big moments in the history of the club, and keep things going. But now moving on to the Europa League semifinals here, getting a draw against Freiburg, and they actually have a pretty interesting side. You can see some guys like Alexander Mitrovic on the squad, playing there in that striker role, but a big 3-1 victory in the first leg, and we'll see how we fare in the second leg. They have a pretty good side regardless, so it's one that we have to keep using our strongest squad essentially, and that is one thing. Our squad is still pretty thin. And for realism's sake, I wish I was able to have a bit stronger squad. But Freiburg almost makes things interesting with a 3-2 victory, but we still go through 5-4. As we see here in the La Liga competition, we ended up in 4th place, just behind Real Madrid by 1 point. And I really think it's going to be a bit difficult to ever kind of reach the next level unless we completely change the squad. And like I said, this is something I really don't want to have to do, because I've always felt like the storyline this was coming to some of the players like Cristóbal Cabezas, where we see a young player from Pachuca Academy, 35 goals, 6 assists. Marcelo Flores, 21 goals, 12 assists, growing so much. A lot of these guys have improved an incredible amount throughout the years. You can see, I think we have a team that's good enough. Manu Vasquez, the 91, Francis in the 80s as well, Johan Vasquez in the 80s. So most of these guys have improved quite a bit. And Foyth has been growing. Borja Sanchez had a really nice campaign from us. Marcelo Flores up to the 90 now, as well as Cristóbal Cabezas at the 88. Irving Lozano even growing up to an 83. So I think this is a good finishing point as we're going to wrap this rebuild up here in the Europa League final versus Tottenham. So they actually have a really good side themselves. We'll take a look at their starting 11. It's interesting to see how some of these teams end up once you go further into these career mode saves, because they are pretty stacked, to say the least. Obviously, you see Guardiola there, one of the center backs they brought in, but they brought quite a few other players. Luis Diaz is actually on the left wing. You'll see here Tekelel is their striker, and a few other guys you'll see in a moment. Actually, Virgil van Dijk is their captain. Virgil van Dijk is their captain coming out there. As we take a look at the Europa League trophy, that's something that UEFA Cup is something that we certainly want to bring home to the Oviedo fan base. Obviously, been through so much in their history. The financial struggles were aided by Carlos Slim, basically a billionaire, kind of buying the rest of the club and get the funds that were needed to kind of prevent them going to liquidation. And of course, there was a really big campaign from people like Spencer FC, actually Juan Mata, Michu, Santi Cazorla really kind of got the football world going for this historic Spanish club. As you see the spotlight on some guys like Marcelo Flores, Cabezas, Irving Lozano. This attacking trio is going to be asked to have a game of their lives against what is a very talented Tottenham side here. But as we'll take a look at their lineup, I've already told they got Virgil van Dijk, Luis Diaz, Militao, Sessegnon, Emerson Royal, obviously, Tchouaméni, Charles, Jeremy Doku. So they have a very strong side, and that is one that we're going to compete with. And you'll see the 5-2-3 at its premium right here, just kind of sitting in front of the defense, making sure not to get caught out too much. Just keep our bodies in front of them, kind of get these deflections, blocks going. A perfect win of the ball from Eric Sanchez. Cardero is gonna go out quickly on the counterattack. Cabezas gets in behind the defense, and Cabezas, the heads, is going to be the head of the table tonight as he puts the ball in the back of the net in the 10th minute to make things 1-0, and what is a kind of key goal here, showcasing the 5-2-3 we decided to play with. It was kind of out of necessity in that first season. It kind of turned out to be a good formation for us, but a huge save, Lunin on that near post, just getting a ball to it and keeping the ball out of the net, as it looked like that was the equalizer. Marcelo Flores now going to run the defense. You'll see showcasing his dribbling ability, and that's what we've seen a lot of him from the clips of him with Arsenal under 23s, and having a big shot at net, and he's going to force a save. But now Cabezas is going to play the ball back here to Cardero, and a perfect ball from our youth academy kind of graduate player who was already on the squad. Marcelo Flores getting in behind. Unfortunately, his finishing was not the best in that moment. He was fouled, so he maybe get a second chance here. We're going to have him step up, try to kind of redeem. Unfortunately, just hits it off of the post. It looked like that could have been going for the top corner, but now Flores is going to make up for it. Some great agility, close control. He's going to finish this out in the 74th, with a 2-0 lead, and was probably the biggest goal, obviously the biggest goal of his career, and redeeming what was a tough miss. I mean, 2 tough misses basically, and that is how you want to see us win this. But like I said, I could have done some more seasons to actually, win the Champions League, La Liga. But I really like the storylines we had with some of these players, and keeping some guys on the team like Alex Cardero, a guy who we brought from the second season. Eric Sanchez Osagueda. We had all these young Mexican players on the side. I think I didn't want to stray too far away from that, and that is why I think we're going to leave it to an end here. But a lovely sight to see Real Oviedo winning these 2 trophies. Obviously, Champions League is considered bigger, but this is something that will always be remembered from a side that 10 years ago was so close to kind of folding as a club and now has reached the heights. Second, I guess we're going to, the second peak before the highest peak in European football, and then of course a huge Spanish Cup victory overcoming Real Madrid. I think it's something that'll go down in history books, and it's going to be one that obviously would be remembered for years. But now going ahead there and celebrating, Eric Sanchez Osagueda been here from the start. Rest of the team will stray off into the distance and celebrate. But with that, guys, hope you enjoyed this rebuild. I plan to have some more coming up, and especially FIFA 23 should be more than weekly uploads of these. But that, guys, thank you all for tuning in. Hit that like button if you haven't. I love you. I'll be signing out now, and I'll catch you guys later.